Hello everyone, I'm Kim and welcome to my sewing room. I hope you're all really well and have managed to get some sewing done this week. I have had a great week, so I'm back in my sewing room. My husband, as anyone that follows me will know, he has been held up with a bad back, so I've been flapping around him for the last couple of weeks making sure that he is comfortable and haven't managed to get much done. But this week I have been back because he is up and moving around, so he's a lot better, and thank you for all your lovely comments. I'm wishing him a speedy recovery. So I have been sewing, but I have decided to park my sewing projects up and show you those another day, because when he was off I went through some old videos that I had posted and I realised that I have been promising you so much and I haven't been delivering, so I thought I'd take a step back and work through some of those things that I have promised you. And one of the things that came up quite frequently was the green machine. So I'm going to show you how I use my green machine, and just recently I have been using it quite a lot because I've made 3 jackets in the last couple of weeks and all of them have had some form of stud or rivet applied to them. So I thought it was a great opportunity to go through my green machine, not just the machine but also some handheld devices that you could use. You do not need to own a green machine to apply a stud. You can do it with a handheld device. So if you don't have a green machine or you don't want to invest in a green machine, you can still apply studs using hand devices. So what is a green machine? Well, a green machine is a press. That is all it is. It is nothing without a die set. So this is the green machine. I'll just pick her up, but she's very heavy. Right, okay, so here she is. So she's a pretty sturdy piece of equipment to have in your sewing room, and my machine just sits on the floor and I just pull her up onto my table as and when I need to use her. But the important thing to remember about any press you have, it doesn't necessarily have to be a green machine. They come in all various colours and sizes. But the thing you need to know are the base measurement and the top screw thread measurement. So my base measurement is 19mm and the top is 8mm. And those are important measurements because when you come to buy your dies, you need to make sure that they are the same size. Now, I'm just going to put her down. Oh. Now, I bought my machine from the trimming shop, and all of the dies I have bought have also come from the trimming shop. But if I was ever to go and purchase a die set from a different supplier, I would just need to make sure that I get the correct measurements for the base and the top to make sure that the die sits comfortably in that machine. You do not want your dies to be wobbling around, because if they wobble around, there is a good chance that you could apply your stud wobbly, and if it is applied wobbly into your project, it is near impossible to get out without damaging the fabric. So you need to just make sure that that die fits your machine snugly. So for today's demonstration, I'm actually going to put various studs, rivets and eyelets into fabric, but all of these can be applied to lots of different things. They can be applied to vinyl, cork, leather, literally anything. It is limitless. They get applied to garments, bags, hats. They can be used for decoration. That is also limitless. So the world's your oyster with studs, and there are just so many different shapes and sizes and colours that you can use. And though I haven't got all of them, I have a fair few, so I will go through them all. But before I go through the actual dies, you need to make sure that wherever you're applying your stud, it needs to be reinforced. So anything like vinyl, cork or leather, you probably will not need to reinforce it, because that material is quite thick and will take the stud without it being under any due stress through its lifetime. But I'm going to do all my demonstrations today on fabric, and fabric is a little bit different because it is more flimsy. So I've got a little bit of this pink corduroy, and it's more flimsy, and there's more chance that a stud could actually work its way out of the fabric over time with all the pulling of the studs, etc. So with anything like fabric, you would need to reinforce it, and all I've done is reinforce mine with some interfacing. We're going to start applying studs and rivets to this. I do have a tiny little bit of vinyl as well. Unfortunately, I don't have any cork or leather, but you will see how it also works on vinyl. So I'm just going to put a few in the vinyl so you can see the effect of it. But most of the rivets, studs and rivets, I'm going to apply to fabric. You need to prepare your fabric, and it's not just about reinforcing, it's also about hole punching. So the cleanest way to hole punch is to actually either use a die set that is a hole punch or a handheld device. So I have a handheld device here, and some of you might already have one of these in your sewing room. So generally I usually set mine to the 2mm hole, and I'm just going to show you on this bit of fabric how it's done. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So here we have our reinforced fabric, and you would need to mark it where you want your stud to be placed. So I've just got an erasable pen here, and I'm just going to make a few markings. So even though I've used a erasable pen, you can use a permanent pen, because it really does not matter, because that marking will disappear once you've made the hole punch. Got my handheld device, and I would think probably most of us have one of these in our sewing room, and mine is set to the smallest hole, which I think is 2mm, and you just literally hover it, put it in between the base and the cutter, and find your marking and literally just press down, and you have a lovely hole. Now the reason why you want a nice clean hole is because when eventually you put the post into your fabric, and this is a post, you can see when it goes in nice and flat. It doesn't pucker the fabric at all, it's laying flat. So when the stud goes in, the stud will also lay flat. Okay, so the hole punch is quite important. Here is a green machine, so I've laid her on her side, and I will go through die sets in more detail, but I just want to show you how I make a hole in the fabric. So with this die set is a 2-part die set, and it comes with a base, and the base is, as you'd expect, 90mm, so it sits nice and snugly into the actual machine. Then we have the screw thread top, and this is a 2mm cutter here, so this is the 2mm hole punch, and that would just screw into the top. So you can see they both fit snugly, and there is no movement, which is definitely what we want. Right, so here we have our die set, and we've got our fabric with its markings. You just literally put your fabric in between, just as you did on the handheld device, and you pull the lever down and guide it down towards that marking, and once you've got it directly over that marking, you just pull the lever down and apply some pressure, and it will make a lovely hole for you. And once you've got that hole, you know that when you eventually come to put the post into that hole, it's a nice and smooth fit, and it lays flat. So what is a die? A die is a metal form that holds a stud part. So we have, for instance, here's a die, and I have a stud part here, and she just sits into this die very tightly. There's no movement there at all. Now this part is a 10mm stud part, so obviously if I wanted to apply a 20mm stud to my garment, this die set's not going to work. So you will find that your collection of die sets will grow as you need different shapes and sizes of dies to apply your different shaped and sized studs. Now they come in two configurations. They come in a 2 or a 4-part configuration. So a 2-part die would be something like the cutting die we just used on our fabric to make a hole. You would also buy 2-part dies for things like double capped rivets, eyelets, your jean button. The 4-part die sets are generally for presser studs, snap poppers, that sort of thing. And when you start to look at all of the different studs that are available to you, you will find there are a huge array of different sizes, shapes and colours. So you can get carried away. Though I have a lot, I have tried to restrict my die sets to the sort of sizes that I would generally use in garments and bags. So before we start putting studs into the fabric, I thought I would just show you the actual studs and how they sit into each of their dies and what they are called. So this die here will hold the cap. So this is known as the cap. She is the top of the stud and she will be the one that shows on the front of the fabric or project, and she sits nicely into the recess of that die. So she's the cap. Secondly, this is the female socket, and she will then sit into her die by literally pushing her in. Now when you push the stud parts into their corresponding dies, if they don't fit, it means you're trying to put them in the wrong way. So just, if it doesn't fit, then just try the other way. Then thirdly, we have the stud post, and you can see here we have the stud post, and they just sit onto the top of the die there. And lastly, we have the male stud. So you can see that little recess there, and the stud literally clips into there. So when I purchase my die sets and the stud parts, I generally like to keep them all in their own bag. So this die set is a S-spring stud set, 10mm. So each of the dies I've marked with a Sharpie pen the number, and when I get them through, I usually make one of these up as a sample. So I know number 1 will be the cap, number 2 is the female socket, number 3 is the post, and number 4 is the male stud. And I can see by that little sample how it all comes together. So in the bag I will also have the cap, female socket, post and the male stud, and they all go neatly in the bag with their sample and also with the die set. So it keeps them all together, because if these get loose, it's very difficult to figure out which stud they belong to. So just try to keep them all nice and neat and in their appropriate bags when they come. So let's start with the 10mm stud. So it's a 4-part die set. So we've already got our fabric that we've made our holes in. So by using my little sample here, I'm looking for die number 1, which is this one. Got number 1 on the side, so that will go into there. And its corresponding die is number 2 for the female socket. So here we have number 2, so that needs to be screwed into the top there. So we just need to get our corresponding stud part. So we have our female socket here, which is number 2. So she goes in, push her in, so she stays in there. And number 1 is the cap, so she sits in there. So what I generally do is if I've got the cap, I will go and actually place it through the hole. So I'm going to find, right, so there she is. She is through a hole, and then I will go and find the recess, so she sits nicely into the recess, so she's not going to move. And then I just use the lever and bring it down, apply some pressure, and there she is, nicely set in, nice and flat, no puckering around the fabric at all. So we're going to put the second part in, which is the post. So number 3 is the post. So we need to take these out first. So number 3 is the post, so put her in, and number 4 is the male stud. So the male stud is there, so we just pop him in, and then we have the post. And with the post, yet again, I'm going to place him underneath and pop him through the hole that we made, and then set him on his die. Okay, and then once he's set, just hold the fabric nice and smooth so it doesn't move, and then just pull your lever. And there we have our first stud in. So beautiful. It's nice and smooth, no puckering of fabric, and it's nice and strong, so that's really nice. So I'm just going to do that again, but this time I'm going to do it with this stud, because this stud is a 20mm, so this is a lot bigger than the smaller 10mm. You can see there's quite a significant difference in their size. So yet again, I've got my sample here. So number one, followed by number 2, it goes on the top. You can see how much bigger these parts are now, so she fits in there. And we have the cap, sits at the bottom. And then I'll just find the hole, push her in, make sure she's not moved out of her recess, and then pull down on the lever. Post. So now we've got the post die and the male stud die. And so the post is this one, and the male stud is this one. If at any time none of the studs fit, it's because you're putting them in the wrong way, so you just need to readjust. Right, there we go. You can see how much bigger, you know, 10mm to 20mm is quite a significant size difference there. But I have used all of these on various projects, and I'll show you those at the end. So they are generally what you would use the 4-part die sets for. So if we go and have a look at some of the 2-part die sets, so we'll look first of all at the double rivet. So next into our fabric, we're going to put a double capped rivet. So you can see from the sample here, this is what it looks like. So this looks exactly the same on the front as it does on the back. And it's a 9mm and it's quite small. And I use these in my bag making, and I've got them in various colours. So I've got them in a gunmetal black, silver, rose gold and gold. And I'm going to put a rose gold one into the fabric, and this is a 2-part die set. So you have a small recess that in this one, which will then take the long stemmed cap, and that will sit in there. So I'm going to put that in my machine first, and then this smaller one here, which hasn't got hardly any stem at all, because the long stem one will be pushed into the centre here. So we are going to put the second part of this die set into our machine. Right. So the smaller cap goes into the top die, and I'm going to just turn it upside down because obviously the longer post rivet needs to go inside that smaller one at the top. Okay, and then get our long posted rivet into holes so it's nice and flat, and then we position that on the die so it sits in the recess. So once it's in there, it sits, you know it's not going to move, and then we pull the lever down and set it in place. Right, so there she is. She's nice and flat on both sides. There's no puckering, and she's in set really, really nicely. So that's successful rivet applied. Right, so next thing we're going to put into our fabric is an eyelet. So I have a 10mm eyelet here. Now this eyelet came from a company called Abbey Tops, only because the trimming shop didn't sell this colour, and I really wanted a sort of rose gold colour, though Abbey Tops calls this copper. And I wanted this warmer colour because I was putting it into an orange sweatshirt. And when I bought the die originally, I just bought the die set to insert the eyelet, but it didn't work very well because I realised that you can't really put an eyelet into your fabric without buying the cutter to go with it. So I'm going to start with the cutting die. So the cutting die, this is a 10mm cutting die, and you can see, you know, we've used a 2mm. This is huge in comparison, and it's just a 2-part die set. So we have the base there. I'm just going to screw the top cutter into our machine. So when you're using a cutting die set, it is best to use a bit of cardboard. And I do normally use cardboard, but I didn't use it on the 2mm one. But it is better to use cardboard underneath to protect this die, and it also gives a better cut into the fabric. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place my cardboard sort of on the die, position my fabric here, and then I'm going to pull the lever down, and you just need to put a little bit more pressure under this. So once you've grabbed the fabric, then give your lever a good old press. So once you've given it a good press, you should get a really nice clean hole in your fabric. So this is where your eyelet's going to go. So we just need to swap this die set out for the next die set, which we'll put the eyelet in. So with this, how I do this is I get this eyelet part which has this collar on it, and I just position that through the cut so that it sits nice and flush. And then the second part, I just basically sit on top. It should be quite snug around all of that eyelet, and then once I've got that into place, I then just put it onto the die like so, and then I give it a really good press on the lever. Right, so once you've given the lever a good press, release the lever, and then you have your eyelet nicely set. And if you give it a good tug, none of that fabric should come away from the eyelet. So you just make sure that when you put your eyelet in, you really do give it a really good press with the lever, because you really want that to be bonded together. So, and it shouldn't come away at all when you pull the fabric from around it. So it's nice and flat again with no puckering. Right, so next into our fabric, we're going to put the jean button stud. Now, absolutely love this stud. It is so nice. They do more studs on the trimming shop site, but I just like the star on this, and it's just got a bit of copper in the middle. So I just think it's quite unique, and I have used these on quite a few of my projects. So with the jean button stud, it is a 2-part die set, and you can see here you have your button, and on the back it's just a post, and this will work alongside a buttonhole. So our die set is this spring-loaded base, so that will go in first, and that's what the post will go into. And then you have the top die where the button will go into the top die and will fit into this area by pushing it against this like rubber silicone. So I'm just going to insert the top. Now with this die set, there is not a lot of room between the base and the top die. So what I would suggest you do is to put the post in first. So drop the post into her die, and generally you can just about see the top of the post in there. If it's not pointing directly up, just give it a tap so it will correct itself, because you want that post to be pointing directly up, because otherwise it won't obviously marry up with the button. So you've got your button, and you need to then push this into that rubber surround. Yeah, just squeeze it in until it's nice and tightly in there. Okay, now with this die set, it's you really do need to contort yourself to see where your hole hits this area. So you need to place your fabric in between those two dies, and you can see the bottom of the button. So let me just move the camera so you can see that. So you can see the bottom of the button, and you just need to really position that over the hole that you've made in your fabric. And then once you've got it there, you then pull your lever down, and you really do need to apply some pressure on your lever to get that button and post to connect. Right, so there's our jean button, nicely connected onto the fabric with its post. So that has worked out really well. Now you will find that with a jean button, generally if I'm putting these into garments, I will double interface the area, because this thing it moves around a lot. So I like to double interface when I'm using jean buttons, because there is, you know, quite a bit of movement there. So that's the jean button. At the beginning of the video, I said that I would apply some studs to some vinyl. So I've got my little sample of vinyl here, and I've just applied a 15mm, no it's not, it's a 10mm stud. So you can see it didn't need any reinforcement at all. It's gone in quite nicely and it works lovely. So that's on a little bit of vinyl. So when I first started sewing, I used to apply studs by hand. So this is a little eyelet kit that I have in my stash, and I've had it for ages. And I must admit, this was the kit that made me buy a green machine, because It gave all the instructions on how to put a hole into your project and how to fasten the eyelet, but I think I hit my hand really badly when using the hammer, and for me that was the last straw. But basically you can buy these kits and you can apply some of these studs using the kits by following the instructions. So that's an eyelet kit. So there is also jean button jeans that you can apply to your projects manually without using a green machine. So it comes with a post, a button and a screwdriver. And I bought these off of Amazon. I have had them in my stash for a while. And basically you would still need to make a hole in your project. You poke the post through your fabric and place your button on the top and then just screw it in, and then once it's fairly tight you can hold the button and then screw the rest in using the screwdriver. And you can see that has exactly the same effect as the one that we put on with the green machine. Now, I have used these in a jeans jacket that I made a couple of years ago, and I did find that over time some of them would work their way loose, and I would be walking around finding I had lost a button without realising. So I found the way around this was to actually apply some glue to the button. So inside the button hole I put some fabric glue in there, so that when I screwed the post in, it just gave it a little bit more sticking power. And I have found that since I've done that I haven't lost any more jeans buttons off of that jacket. So we've now come to the end of our video, and we have our fabric with all of our practice studs and rivets on, and they were quite nice to get them out and play with them again. So I thought what I would do is just go through some garments where quite a few of these have been applied. So first of all, I have my a tennis jacket on, where I have placed the beautiful jeans buttons from the trimming shop with the copper star in the middle, and I really like these buttons. They just add a little bit of warmth and they just look a little bit different. And on the sleeve I have used a double capped rivet at the end of the placket. I just think it just finishes off that sleeve quite nicely. So this is my Kennedy hoodie, and on this I have used some rose gold presser studs. I think they're about 15mm studs, so they worked really well. And also in the hood I have attached the eyelets. Now this hoodie is probably 6 months old, and the eyelets are still very well bonded and have not moved at all. So I'm really pleased with my eyelet studs. I think they've worked really well on this garment. On this jean jacket I also used the trimming shop jean buttons with the copper star, and they worked really well. I think I put a stud, yeah, and this time I put a gold stud on the placket there, so that worked really well. And on this downtown jacket I used 20mm presser studs. You can see these are a nice size and they're in a gunmetal colour, and they work really well on this jacket, so that worked out really well. And on this handbag I used double rivets. So the double capped rivets, they've been placed on this bag. So first of all, these are just for decoration, but they just look really nice. They just give this bag a little bit of an edge, and I really like the hardware on this bag. And inside there's another little rivet here, which obviously helps with the stress of these pockets. So that's my double capped rivets. And last but not least, this is my very first jean jacket that I made, and these jean buttons are the ones that are manual. So when these went on, these were the screw ones, and these were the ones that I kept on losing. So by just adding a little bit of glue into the center barrel of the button has kept the buttons nice and secure, and I haven't lost any since. And because at the time I did not have a green machine, I didn't get to put my rivets on, but maybe maybe I will do in the future. But I just love this jacket. I love all of my jackets. So, and I love all of my styles. I love playing with them, and it's been a lot of fun making this video, so I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to try and put as much detail as I can in the description, so hopefully if it's not all sunk in through watching the video, you'll be able to find some detail below. So I hope you all have a really good week sewing, and I will catch up with you very soon. Take care. Bye.